How long were you experiencing that?
At his 3 months, my depression got really bad. I remember going in to my 6 weeks appointment and they gave me that paper where it says, like, are you depressed? And like, do you cry? Do you have any thoughts of like harm? And I just remember looking down at that paper and just thinking, how can I answer these questions? Like, I know I'm sad, but I'm embarrassed to mark them. And I just remember my tear falling on that darn paper and I said, I'm okay. And I checked them all. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I kept telling myself, it's just a phase. You've never been depressed. I've always been happy, positive thoughts. And I just kept telling myself, like, you're fine. How can you be sad? You just had a baby. You'll be fine. Just give it a couple more weeks. My doctor asked me, like, hey, are you sure? And I was like, no, I'm pretty strong and I think I got this. And that's how I left it then.
On today's episode, we're joined by Leslie, aka LITTLELUNASENSORY. In case you missed the last episode, Leslie lives in Kansas with her husband and 2 adorable sons. I met Leslie through her sensory page on Instagram, but we've connected on a much more deep level behind the scenes, and she's a fantastic person and mama. So Leslie's a former teacher turned stay-at-home mom, and she's passionate about sharing all the fun and creative little things she comes up with for her kids on social media. Previously, we went through her I had no idea moments throughout parenthood, and today we're going to be discussing her experiences with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. At the end, we'll do some listener questions about this topic, and let's just go ahead and get started. All right, welcome back, Leslie. Today, we're going to go through your experiences with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. So thank you very much for having this conversation with me. With postpartum depression, you said that was mostly with your first. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have it with your second at all, or was it just the first?
It was more maintained the second time around.
Gotcha. Okay. So did you have a history of depression prior?
No, this came out of the blue.
Okay. So this was all kind of new. Is it something that you had heard about before?
Yes and no. I had known about it. I knew it was a thing. I didn't know how severe it could get, but it wasn't very talked about, I guess.
Right. What were you experiencing? Like what happened?
Very sad. I noticed losing a lot of my interest. I knew that I was crying a lot, like especially at night when I was putting him to sleep, hoping for longer periods of sleep. I would sit there and cry and I didn't know exactly why or what was making me sad. And I lost a lot of interest in doing all the cute little things that I wanted to do with my baby, like all the little footprints. And like I didn't even have the energy to even pick out like a paint color or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. So you hear a little, well, actually, I didn't really hear about baby blues. Had you heard about baby blues?
They told me when I went in, that's maybe what it was, but I didn't even know what beforehand, I didn't know what that was.
Okay. And so this was this beyond the 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, this continued for a while? Yeah. How long were you kind of experiencing that?
It was maybe at his 3 months when it got really bad. My depression got really bad.
Okay.
I remember going in to my appointment, my postpartum appointment, the 6 weeks appointment.
Yeah.
And they gave me that paper where it says, like, are you depressed? Pretty much.
Yeah.
And like, do you cry? Do you have any thoughts of like harm or... And I just remember looking down at that paper and just thinking, like, how can I answer these questions? Like I know I'm sad, but I'm embarrassed to mark them. And I just remember my tear falling on that darn paper and I said, I'm okay. And I checked them all. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I kept telling myself, it's just a phase. You've never been depressed. I've always been happy, positive thoughts. I'm always like, oh, it didn't work out. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Like, none of those things really bothered me. And I just kept telling myself, like, oh, you're fine. You're happy. how can you be sad? You just had a baby and
Right.
you'll be fine. It's just, just give it a couple more weeks. And my doctor asked me like, hey, are you sure you don't want medication? You don't want a therapy
Hmm.
session? And I was like, no, I'm pretty strong and I think I got this. And that's how I left it then. Yeah.
Was it, when filling that out, if you marked those things, were you afraid of
hmm
what they would say? Or was it more of like a personal, like, I got this kind of a thing?
I think it was more personal, like I got this kind of thing.
Okay.
And it
Gotcha.
was just embarrassment because in at least in my culture, in Hispanic culture, those things aren't very talked about, aren't very well known. And when you say, "Okay, I think I'm depressed," they'll be like, "Oh, get over it. That's not a thing." Or,
Gotcha.
just there's other things to be sad about. So
Sure.
I
Sure.
I was embarrassed to even think that I was depressed or that I was going through postpartum depression.
Gotcha. What point did you realize, okay, something's wrong. I need to kind of figure this out. Like, what was that moment?
That moment was when he turned 3 months. We had a wedding to go to, and I remember getting dressed up and getting Leo all dressed up and super cute, and realizing that I was not feeling anything. I was very like out of it, very zoned out, and just not happy.
Hmm.
Um, and at the end of the day, it was really bad to the point where I thought of self harm.
Hmm.
And luckily, I had a friend come over and help me just talk through it and stayed there with me. And then the next day, we both decided that it would be best to go talk to the doctor and get on medication. So we did that.
Good. Good. Yeah, I'm glad you had that friend. And is this something that your husband kind of recognized too?
Um, I don't think so. I think it was something that I kept to myself. Again, I
Hmm.
think I was very embarrassed and very out of it. So I didn't know to even talk about it or mention it. I think he did notice me crying quite a bit because I remember
Hmm.
him asking like, "Hey, what's wrong? Like you're crying." Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you said you had gone to the doctor then. What was that experience like?
Um, luckily my doctor was super understanding and she said, "Okay, this is normal. We get it." And they got me on medication pretty easy.
Yeah, and that seemed to help.
Yeah, a lot.
Good, good. Was that something that you were able to like continue for a while? Because I know like then you got pregnant
hmm
um, right after that, and you said you had it a little bit, but not as bad because it was controlled. Was that something that
Yes.
you were able to continue through that?
Yeah, I was determined not to get it that bad or let it get that bad. So I
Totally.
went ahead and talked to my doctor about it, and she recommended we start it even before he was due. So we had that going and therapy going, and it helped a lot being a lot
Yeah,
more prepared
yeah, definitely. Were you doing like in person kind of therapy, or was it the online?
in person.
Oh, nice.
hmm
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering with like COVID stuff if that I know a lot of people had to go to online, so
Yeah.
that's good. And you found someone pretty quickly that you were
hmm
able to talk with. Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So you mentioned you have heard about it online and everything prior to that experience. Um, what kind of surprised you the most about your experience?
I had no idea that it would get so bad and not wanting to share it.
Yeah.
I honestly think from my labor being so difficult and not being the way I thought it was going to be, and with COVID, and I was so isolated, I couldn't have visitors, my parents didn't come over.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like that had to do a lot with it, and I was just not interested in being on my phone, talking even on the phone. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like it was that birth experience was traumatic and that kind
I
of,
think so. I look at it and feel I feel robbed sometimes
yeah.
of that I didn't get to hold Leo for as long as I did Milo, and just little things like that I, especially being my first, expecting the whole, like, oh, you fall in love with your baby the second you meet him, and, I passed out. Like, I
Right.
don't remember, and it
Right.
sucked. I felt like a bad mom, even though I had just started.
Right. Did you feel like that kind of hindered that relationship in the beginning? Like, was it, because I mean, I kind of had a similar thing where it didn't feel immediate. I was
Mhm.
expecting this instant love and like
Mhm.
she was taken away right away. So when I was, reunited with her, it it was almost hard. It didn't feel
Mhm.
natural. It didn't feel like it came right away. It was kind of a gradual love. Did you feel that too? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
not that instant love that you hear
That you
about
hear
on
about.
social media.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. So, did you feel supported during the postpartum time?
With my first, I didn't. Again, I think it was the COVID thing.
Okay.
Nobody, I think we were all afraid, um,
Yeah.
especially with a brand new baby. Um, and I know our church stopped doing the meal things again because of COVID. So all that really, I feel impacted and really stacked on for like on my postpartum depression. With my second one, I feel like I was more supported. My mother-in-law was super sweet and sent me like two massive boxes from Sam's of like paper plates and silverware.
Oh,
So
nice.
I wouldn't have to do dishes and I could just use
Oh,
those. Yeah. And that was
the best
amazing. Yeah.
gift for a new mom.
Yeah.
Literally, paper plates
Yep.
and plastic utensils.
Yeah. It was the best.
The best. Like, just to not have to do dishes is
Right.
amazing
I didn't even
because
have to
it's
think
it's
about
so
them.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
Not even
awesome.
loading the dishwasher, just throw it away.
Yes. Yeah, and actually, when I started bringing people stuff after having kids, I started bringing more like a bunch of snacky foods
Hmm.
because the meals were great, but when you have a baby and you're trying to like do things, like you don't have a lot of time to like, hey, let me heat this meal up in
Or
like the microwave.
defrost.
Right, right, exactly. So like it's nice, but like it's not always practical when you have a
Right.
newborn. So yeah, so I started bringing people like a bunch of, healthy snacky things like fresh fruit
Hmm.
and, homemade granola and, maybe like boiled eggs and stuff that they
Right.
could like grab and eat because that's kind of what when I was reflecting back, I'm like, gosh, that's what I wish I would have
Hmm.
had is these snacky things that are healthier
And
and not
just
just
ready to
like
go.
chips. Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. For sure. So when it came to the people around you or like your family or whatnot, what do you wish that they would have known or like looked out for when it came to your depression?
Yeah. I wish they would have known me calling wasn't like me. Or not answering their calls wasn't like me.
Ah,
And I wish
okay.
they would have questioned it more. And I get it. Like they're like, oh, she's a new mom, maybe she's sleeping, or I don't want to bother her, kind of thing. And I
Sure.
wish someone would have bothered me. I wish someone would have reached out,
Yeah.
just pushed it a little more. But
Oh, that's really good to know.
yeah,
Just to kind of, yeah, it's very good thought. If you think about like all the new moms, yeah, you're sometimes you're scared to like bother them.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
still feel that all the time. Like whenever somebody has a baby, I'm like, oh, it's like this fine line of do I want to bug them and be like, hey, how's everything going?
yeah,
And also like, oh, I don't want to bug them because like they have a newborn. Like,
right.
but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like if it's not normal for that person to be not answering or whatever, to check up more. So, I know you mentioned self-harm. Was there ever like that thought of, like something with the baby or like,
Hmm.
um, did you have any of those kind of thoughts or feelings or
I never pinpointed a thought towards the baby or towards Leo. I remember clearly sitting down and like everything feeling very far away or like very zoomed out and just seeing him and his little bouncer and thinking like I could never do anything to him. But I didn't feel deserving to be there. Yeah.
ah,
So I think it
gotcha.
was all just more towards me. And
Sure.
you know.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you for answering.
Yeah.
I know it could be a little hard. So, postpartum anxiety, is that something that you knew about beforehand? Were you familiar with that at all?
No, that was completely new. Yeah.
Shocking. Yes.
Yeah.
Same. Did you have any kind of like anxiety prior or anything like that?
Not prior. I think anything of prior anxiety would have been like just claustrophobia, just a lot of people at like one
Sure.
place, like Walmart really stressed me out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going there.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Other
just
than
like,
that, yeah.
typical. Okay.
hmm
So yeah, that totally caught you off guard then.
hmm
What kind of things were you experiencing?
I think it started more when I started leaving the house with him by myself.
Okay.
I experienced a lot of anxiety over someone wanting to take my babies. Like I
Mm,
was really anxious of the thought of like that man wants to take my baby and or that guy is gonna steal my baby. Yeah, it was very
yeah.
much like I was very anxious of anybody that got really close to me
hmm
and any like people that wanted to say hi to the baby. Like I would always have his little canopy over him because I didn't want people like looking at him or waving at him. And it's carried on to now because
hmm
I still use like their little handcuff things, like when we
Little
go
hand.
out to
Oh
places.
yeah, like the
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't
gotcha.
even know what they're properly called, but or like the
Like the
backpack
leash, but not
leashes.
like yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, totally. I did it too. I had a backpack one.
Yeah, me too. And Leo snapped it, so we had to move to the
Yeah, those
handcuffs.
are worthless. Yeah, they like
They
slither
slip
their way
out of
out.
them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the wrist ones work.
That one's a lot
Yeah,
better.
yeah. Are they runners?
Leo is very much a runner.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
just
That's hard.
bolts.
Yeah. Crap. I had a question. Let me think about it for a second.
hmm
It was good too.
Yeah,
Oh, I hate when that happens.
me
I know
too.
I was gonna have a notebook or something, but I'm like also don't want to be like
Like
rude,
looking down. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm like, how do people do this? Because I'm like, I have great questions, and I'm like, I lost it. It's gone. I'll think about it for a second. Oh, I remember. Okay. Let me write it down before I forget. I will forget 2 seconds after I just remembered again. Does
Yeah,
that
me
happen to
too.
you?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I think
I'm
about it
like,
and I just sit there. And I'm like, oh, I remember.
yeah, I'll do that like 3 or 4 times and like, crap, I gotta write it down. I literally,
Yeah.
have you heard of Marco Polo?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
It's awesome. It's like a messaging, like a, it's almost like a walkie-talkie situation, but like you don't have to be on the other end. So it's like you're just having a conversation with somebody and then they can watch it whenever they want, like a
Oh,
video conversation.
yeah.
Yeah. And I do that all the time with certain friends and I'll listen to their message and then I'll literally have to take notes to respond because I'll be like,
Uh-huh.
uh, what? I forgot everything. Let me go back and listen. So
Yeah,
I just started. I'm like, I have to take notes.
that's funny.
It's ridiculous. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm trying to do a podcast. If you're enjoying this episode so far, please take a moment to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you get more episodes like this in the future. Did you feel like you were having kind of like almost like obsessive thoughts about it too?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a lot of do I even want to go get this? And it was like very like necessary things like groceries and stuff like that. And I wouldn't do it and I would just have like my husband do it or do like the pickup thing.
Sure.
And so I knew that was starting to get a little a little crazy.
Is that something that you just recognized on your own, or was that something that,
Yeah.
okay.
I recognized it on my own when I was like, okay, I gotta leave the house.
I gotta get the
Yeah.
groceries. Yeah, gotcha. So for the anxiety side, what's kind of helped with that?
I think we just upped my medication and that helped a
Gotcha.
lot.
Oh,
And
good.
just again easing back into the outside world with my husband and just adjusting and doing things with him a lot more. So like groceries, like especially when I need like both hands and I have my two
Right.
kids, it's so much harder to
Oh,
do
totally.
anything. Goodness.
I don't know how people go out with two or even more than two. Like I struggle
Yeah.
with two.
Yeah,
I
me
don't.
too. It's
And
hard.
I'm like, I have a friend that has like 4 kids, and I'm like, girl, how you do it?
Yeah.
Because like I'm over here like I could barely take two out because I'm just so like
Yeah.
everything is going wrong. Like
Yeah.
just like I don't go to the grocery store with them usually. I'll go out to other places. I've kind of forced myself out.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to that kind of stuff, I don't know what it is. I'm just like, I can't do it.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
so
hard.
hard. Yeah, I'm like grocery pickup. It's
Yeah.
like, as much as possible. And then my
Mm-hmm.
husband goes on the weekends.
Yeah.
He takes them sometimes, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that because
Yeah.
it's tough. Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did have a listener question. It was anonymous, and the question was, what is a good way to support someone who is going through postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety?
I think again, I think it was if it's out of their common personality to really check in with them. I know you
Mhm.
might feel like a bother or like naggy, but I would rather have someone be naggy than wishing someone would have checked.
Totally.
Just look out for those small signs of just personality change, loss of interest, and yeah, I think
Definitely.
those were my big ones.
All right, Leslie, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate this chat so much. Obviously, we've connected behind the scenes, and this is awesome. Now we finally have chatted
Yes.
face to face, kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we can find you where?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok with LITTLELUNASENSORY, and that's where me and the boys are.
By the way, where did you come up with that name?
So Little Luna Sensory, little is just because I call any kid little. They're little,
Yeah.
no matter what age they are.
Yeah.
Luna is moon in Spanish, and I do a lot of my thinking at night, especially when I was rocking Leo, my first one, to sleep. We had this big window in his room, and I would see the moon. And
Aw.
yeah, so that has a lot to do with that. And littles also learn while they're sleeping. They do a lot of processing
Yeah.
while they sleep.
That's really cute.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
All right, friends, let us know what was your favorite part of the episode today. Leave us a comment below and let us know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this episode, I think you're really going to like this one too.